Primarily, it might be because his firm, his company, lost a long-running legal battle to stop an 11-turbine wind farm being built in the North Sea, which is in sight of his golf course in Aberdeenshire. It is now built. It is built out in Aberdeen Bay, and of course Donald Trump will be in Aberdeenshire in the next couple of days. On migration, the President's claims there that this was a horrible invasion which was killing Europe, but clearly not everyone will agree with him, and that is why there have been protests around the country against his politics.
Okay, thank you for the moment, Ben Philip. Well, as we were saying just then, Karen, we are expecting Ursula von der Leyen to arrive here in the next hour or so. We are expecting we might see her with President Trump on camera before their official talks get underway. So, of course, we will be watching closely here in Turnberry.
Absolutely. Rajini, thanks very much, keeping a close eye on events there on the golf course and off. Let's go to the sport now and take a look at what's going on there with Mark Benstead. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Karen. Well, no doubt about it, there is a heavyweight encounter on the bill in Basel in a couple of hours' time. It is the final of Euro 2025. Spain are hoping to add the title to their World Cup and Nations League victories, while England are the holders, and they have now reached their third straight major championship final. Sarina Wiegman's side lost to Spain 2 years ago in Australia, but she insists that Sunday's rematch, well, that stands alone.
I'm not using that motivation. I think we know each other so well. We respect each other a lot. You can feel that respect from each other. We've played now in the World Cup, in the Euros, in the Nations League. So we know each other really well. What we're trying to do now is get the best possible game plan and get everyone fit and ready for Sunday so we can make the best decision and play at our best. And then hopefully that will bring us the win.
I think we're very connected to what it means to the nation, and in that sense, I was connected as we can be, being away from home. The opportunity and what's on offer is the best thing in football. We came to the tournament, we wanted to be here, we wanted to be in it till the end and have a chance to fight for that trophy, and you can't do that until you get into the final. So we don't necessarily carry the weight of it and how much it means to people, but we're aware of it because it means the same to us. So you have a squad of excited players, focused players, and like I say, we recognise the opportunity and we'll do everything we can to take it.
The two nations have had very different journeys to today's final. England have needed late goals and a dramatic penalty shootout to secure their place, while Spain have won every match. Indeed, until the semi-final extra time win over Germany, they were barely troubled. But there's still a sense of expectation back home, even if their captain isn't watching too much of it.
They are telling us that Spain is moving a lot, watching us, and just to tell them thank you, because that's important for us. But I'm the one that I prefer to leave the phone and not check that much the media, because it doesn't help in the performance.
To the cricket, and could we be heading for a draw in the fourth test at Old Trafford? England have taken 2 more wickets today so far. Ben Stokes was at his inspirational best earlier as he dismissed KL Rahul, LBW for 90, before Shubman Gill was caught off the bowling of Jofra Archer, but not before he made his 4th century of the series. India are currently 298 for 4, and they trail England by just 13 runs. England's Lottie Woad still leads the way at the Women's Scottish Open. She was still an amateur less than 2 weeks ago and could become only the 2nd woman in 74 years to win their first LPGA tournament as a professional. With 4 birdies today, Woad leads by 2. South Korea's Kim Hyo-joo had been level at the top of the leaderboard, but back-to-back bogeys cost her. Woad has just made only her 3rd bogey of the tournament, and she is currently on the 17th hole. The tennis and the men's final at the Washington Open later. We'll see Alejandro Davidovich Fokina face Australia's Alex de Minaur. De Minaur beat Corentin Moutet in straight sets in his semi-final as he aims to win his 10th ATP title. Davidovich Fokina got past the world number 8, Ben Shelton. In terms of the women's competition, Anna Kalinskaya prevented a rematch of the 2021 US Open final by beating Emma Raducanu in straight sets. She will now play Canada's Leylah Fernandez. And the start of the Belgian Grand Prix has been delayed because of heavy rain in Spa. When it gets underway, Lando Norris will start from pole. You can follow that and the final stage of the Tour de France over on the BBC Sport website. But for now, that's all the sport for the time being.
Mark, thanks very much. See you later. Now, firefighters in Turkey and Greece are battling raging wildfires with extreme heat. Temperatures are in the high 40s. Turkey has deployed 130 aircraft, while Greece struggles to contain blazes in Kythera and the Peloponnese. Authorities have urged vigilance as international teams join efforts across the eastern Mediterranean.
The thick smell of burning wood hangs heavy in the air as flames tear through parched landscapes across Greece, the closest just 18 miles north of the capital city, Athens. In the last 24 hours, more than 50 new fires have been reported across 5 regions of the country. With emergency services stretched thin, residents have joined the effort, battling to save their homes with buckets, hoses and whatever they can find.
We hope the wind dies down. People's properties have been burnt, efforts of a lifetime. We are battling. What can we do?
Greek officials have formally appealed to the European Union, asking for planes and equipment to help contain the fires. With strong winds forecast and temperatures still climbing, it's hoped the flames can be held back long enough for help to arrive. Greg Mackenzie, BBC News.
Well, we're just over an hour and a half until the Women's Euro 2025 final. England preparing to take on Spain. Prince William has wished England's Lionesses good luck ahead of their showdown. The Prince, who'll be at the match in Switzerland in his role as patron of the Football Association, posted on social media saying the nation is proud. They are through to the final after some stunning comebacks. He added, "We are all cheering you on." Let's go to Emma Vardy, who's there in Basel, where the final is taking place. Lots of preparations going on there and lots of excitement too. Emma, over to you.
That's right, the stadium is where it's all happening later, but this afternoon, this is where all the excitement's been building, because this is the enormous fan zone that's been set up for all the fans to keep them busy, keep the nerves at bay until kick-off. Let's go and have a little walk around. As you can see, there's been activities all over. There's been a football shootout, a bit of scoring practice. We've had a bit of basketball, I think, going on over here, a bit of basketball shooting too. And all the fans just been having a bite to eat and a few drinks. Let's go and catch up with a few of them. Here we go. Hello, ladies. You're live on the BBC.
Hello there.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Oh, so what brings you here then? Whose idea was it for the trip?
Mine. Always mine. Football mad.
What does it mean to you to be here?
Everything, because obviously it's so special to travel around the UK, obviously the different countries from the UK to watch women's football. Even if it's not the Lionesses, it's so important to embrace it and support it. But obviously, Lionesses come first.
How are you feeling? Not long to go till kick-off now.
It's not long, no. I'm anticipating it, waiting, and I think they're going to win. Yeah. Come on, England! Not as nervous as the semi-final, but like...
I mean, there's been some nail-biters, hasn't there?
Absolutely. I just don't want them to leave it to the last minute. I can't do it. The heartache. I can't.
They like to do that to us.
They do, yes. I have to keep taking in sugar. I keep losing weight. I come out lighter than I went in. It's crazy.
All right, okay. I'm hoping for a nice convincing win tonight, so all our nerves can be settled down. Thank you so much for talking to us. Let's move on. Now, we're actually going to say hi to one of the Spain fans. Let's see if we can find her again. Here she is. Here she is. Okay, our opposition. Introduce yourself for us.
Hi, my name is Andrea. I'm 20 and I'm here to support Spain. ¡Viva España!
Okay. So, how are you feeling ahead of this? Because Spain are the world champions, so you should be full of confidence.
I'm really comfortable. I feel great. The last game they played was amazing. The last goal of Aitana Bonmati was great. I feel like she's the best player in the world, and the last goal was fantastic. After a great recovery from the hospital, she's doing great.
How much support is there for women's football in Spain? Because we've really seen it increase in England.
I'm not from Spain. I'm from Mexico, but in Mexico it's really going great. People do support them. I've seen the Sub-19 play in my country, in my city, and it's wonderful. I see many people watching them and supporting them.
That's good to hear. Give us a wave. We'll see you later. I would say good luck, but you can probably guess whose side I'm on. All right, we'll see you later. Okay, let's go round here. Here we go. We've got a few more people to say hello to. It's not long now till they'll be getting into the stadium, but they've held on for us. Hi, ladies. Back to see you all from London, right? Yes. Okay, it's the London crew. Tell us what brings you together. What made you book this trip?
Women's football, sunshine, and swimming in the lakes.
That's a good combo. It's a good combo. What have you made of the trip so far? How many games did you get to see?
We've been here since the beginning of the group stages, and then we fly back in a couple of days.
Brilliant. So you made it all the way through to the final. What do you make of Switzerland? How's it been?
Yeah, it's been amazing. Honestly, beautiful scenery, great vibes, like really fun, really fun.
How do you think they're going to do tonight? Is it going to be another nail biter?
Absolutely. It has to be. It has to be.
The way they played the tournament, it's going to be a touch and go. It's going to be like the World Cup all over again. It's going to be a one-goal wonder, and it's going to be England to do it this time.
What will it mean for women's football again then if the Lionesses were to win this and retain that title?
I think a second time in a row would just be amazing. I think after the last Euros, the stadiums, Arsenal, Chelsea were just filled out, and I think to do that a second time would be so good.
Yeah, amazing. Fantastic. Any score predictions then? Do you dare?
We were going to go 2-1 England.
Yeah,
I was going 1-0 England, a bit more of a nail biter.
England, let's be realistic.
All right, brilliant stuff then. Well, look, really enjoy it. I'm hoping for a convincing win so we can just all relax.
And calm down and enjoy the night.
I know, right? Give us a big cheer for us. Okay, follow me this way. I've got something else to show you very quickly just before we have to wrap up. There's this huge, massive game of table football. We love it. Okay, who's winning? Who's winning? Who's winning? You're live on BBC. Nobody's winning. We're not sure. I'd like to get one of these for my living room, but my living room's just not that big. Now, a lot of the fans have already marched down to the stadium. That's nearly it for us. Stay with BBC News.
Now on BBC News, from rejection to recognition, author Anne Patchett shares the resilience behind her rise to literary acclaim and how she resists the pull of technology to protect her creativity. In another chance to see this, Influential with Catty Kane.
This is going to sound like I'm treating you like a museum piece.
I am a museum piece. Please, bring it.
And you are one of the best-selling authors in America. You have had numerous big prizes, translated into 30 languages, hit after hit in the bestseller list. And I love the fact that I'm making you blush.
And my instinct is to be like, no, it's actually not as good as all that. You're not interviewing John Grisham.
But it really is as good as all that. Did you always know this is what you were going to do?
Well, I would say yes if you were talking about writing. I would say no if you were talking about writing successfully. I had a very La Boheme vision of myself when I was young. And I thought I would write, but that no one would ever read what I wrote. I never thought about this life, ever.
Why not? Why didn't you think you were going to be successful?
Because I wanted to make art and I wanted to write literary fiction, and I just never associated that with success. Also, when I was a child, I never thought about writers being alive because the people that we read were dead. I just didn't think that you could make art and be successful. Never occurred to me.
And did you think of this? Did you have in your mind as well a bookshop, and now you own Parnassus and have become a fixture in Nashville? Was that also part of your vision for yourself?
Absolutely.
Supporting other authors?
Absolutely not. No. This came about because the bookstores in Nashville had closed. I met a woman named Karen Hayes who said, I'm interested in partnering, or I said, I don't know. We came up with the idea over the course of lunch as total strangers that we would partner and open a bookshop together. And she would be the owner-manager and I would be the silent partner who funded it. And that changed. It wasn't that I wanted to open a bookstore. It was that I didn't want to live in a city that didn't have a bookstore, and somebody needed to do it. And it seemed civic. And then a couple of years ago, Karen retired. And so now I own the whole bookstore. So no, I really fell into it backwards. And it's been a wonderful thing. It's been a huge joy, but I was never somebody who thought someday a bookstore.
How would you describe your novels? If you were looking up on high from Anne Patchett and the body of her work, some people have asked me to describe how I would describe your novels. And I thought, well, I'll ask you how you would describe them.
Right. A group of people are thrown together and they have to work things out because they are stuck. I like a desert island scenario. My first novel was set in a home for unwed mothers. Bel Canto, set in a terrorist situation where people can't leave the house. Magician's Assistant, they're stuck in a snowstorm. I mean, again and again, State of Wonder, they're down in the Amazon in this place that nobody can get to or get out of. I like people in confinement. And so they have to kind of keep going back to each other until they can work out their problems.
So it's about the relationships more than the setting?
Yes, definitely. The setting is the fun. The setting is the frosting. And I can just design it and change it. But it is always the relationships.
How are people reading in a world where our attention span is so scattered, fragmented among 50 different apps and podcasts and news channels? And has it changed the way we read?
I'm sure it has, but back to when Karen and I were opening this store and everyone was saying, this is insane. I remember we found a space that we really wanted to rent, and the person who owned the property said, oh, I would never rent to a bookstore. Bookstores are dead. You guys are going to go out of business in 6 months. We've been great. When we opened the store, it never occurred to us to have a romance section. And then I don't know how many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, we had a shelf. We had one shelf of romance, and now we have a whole section of romance, a big section of romance. And that's true of all my friends who own bookstores all over the country. There are always going to be people who want to read. And that is the fact, that there isn't any one truth about the way people are, how they get their entertainment, how they get their education, and they all want a book. So that's wonderful, because there are people who are still going to be reading on their phones. There are people who aren't reading at all, but history is full of people who didn't read at all. I'm only here to serve the people who still want to read a book.
Do you think people come to you, Anne, in the context of kind of, not of escapism, but of seeing good in people or good in humanity? I love your novels because people are nice to each other generally. I mean, you get a couple of bad guys along the way, but not terribly many mean people. Do you is that in the world we live in, where you look at the news out there and it is pretty grim? Are you conscious of giving people a more optimistic view?
No,
of humanity.
It's the world I see. I look out through my own eyes, and if I'm reading the news, I can see lots and lots of horrible things. But the people that I interact with every day, and I'm really wondering if this is true for you as well, are really kind people. Every day. The people I work with here at the bookstore, my friends, the people who come into the bookstore, the people that I see in the grocery store, the people that I see in my neighborhood, my neighbors who I love. So there is so much kindness, decency, thoughtfulness that I don't see represented often enough in fiction. And it's not like, oh, I want to step in to fill the gap. But in that sense, I am writing from experience. And I find I get a lot of flack about this, that I'm writing fairy tales, or that I'm out of touch, or I don't know what a terrible world we live in. But every day I go out and I walk my dog, and the people that I see are so kind. So shouldn't that also be represented? The nice thing about my job is it's not like I write a novel and that is the one novel for the year. I'm just a little tiny chip in all of the books that are written. So if you want a book about a princess dating a dragon, I can show you what section to go to. If you want a retelling of Huckleberry Finn, I can put that book in your hand. I am not all books, but I am this book. And in my world, there probably is more kindness than you might see in other books, but not more kindness than you might see in your daily life.
And you've never been tempted to think, actually, I'm going to write dark? Or do you think you couldn't write dark if you wanted to because it's not what you see?
I'm not very good at dark. I'm really not very good at villains at all. And there are very few of them in my books. In the Dutch House, that was an interesting story. So I was interviewing Zadie Smith, and Swing Time had just come out, and my book Commonwealth had come out. And Commonwealth is a very autobiographical novel, and Swing Time appeared to be an autobiographical novel. So I was asking Zadie about it, and she was saying autobiographical fiction isn't what has happened to us. It's what we're afraid of happening. It's what we fixate on and think about and worry about. And in that moment, I thought, what am I afraid of? Who am I afraid of being? What do I think about all the time? I'm afraid of being a bad stepmother. I'm actually a really good stepmother, I think. But I've always been so afraid of doing anything that would make my husband's children have a harder life, because I love them. And I could immediately imagine a character who was a terrible stepmother and manipulative and rage-filled and horrible, because that was my fear. And so Andrea, the character of the stepmother in The Dutch House, is probably my best villain.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I tapped into the well of my villainous self. That's what I just need to do.
But only once.
I'll do it again.
You wrote 3 books before you had a major success.
Yes.
I'm always interested in how people keep going. We interviewed Ken Follett for another series, and he also wrote numerous books that had no success at all, but he kept going until he had a success. What was it after you'd written 3 books that didn't sell particularly well? I think I'd have given up, Anne. I think I just...
No, let me explain it to you.
Many people would have given, most people would have given up.
No, that's not true. Many people who had written 3 novels that they had not been able to publish would have given up.
Right.
But I was doing great. I mean, again, the secret to happiness is low expectations. Yeah. And so I never thought that I would have any success. The fact that I had sold 3 books and made enough money to survive in a 1-room apartment, I was fantastic. I was king of the world. So, and I would get invited to festivals. I had teaching jobs. That was doing great. I was what you call a mid-list author. It wasn't
Look at me.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't anything like, oh, I thought that I would give up. Or nor did I think, I'm going to keep writing until I get my big breakthrough book. It wasn't that.
When you then wrote Bel Canto, and it was this huge success, how did that change your expectations for your future novels? Did that in a way land you with this proposition of success that you had to keep fulfilling?
So Bel Canto sold as well as my first 3 books when it was in hardback. People will come into the store all the time clutching an old hardback copy of Bel Canto, and they'll say, it's a first edition. And I'll say, they're all first editions, because there wasn't a second printing in hardback. They were only first editions. And then in paperback.
Because it wasn't an instant success.
Gosh, no. Right. Then in paperback, the book really took off and sold so well. And then,
what changed between hardback and paperback apart from the price?
It was 9/11.
Right.
And in the same way, it was The Kite Runner and Bel Canto. Those were the 2 books that really exploded in relation to September 11th, because book clubs wanted to read about terrorism. So, of course, what would you go to but a book about an opera singer being held captive in a giant mansion? And they wanted to read about Afghanistan, and they read The Kite Runner. Just not at all related to reality. But that was the thing that made the book a success. And I don't in any way feel like, oh, I wrote 3 mediocre books and then I wrote a really good one. It's just the luck of the draw, how things change. And so a lot of people said to me, how were you able to write another book after that? Nobody's watching. I'm not curing cancer. I'm not a 14-year-old girl on Instagram selling mascara to 20 million people. It's literary fiction. So I can do whatever I want. There's no pressure.
You don't have a smartphone. You showed me your flip phone that you don't even know the number to, and it isn't charged anyway, so I'm not quite sure why you carry it in your bag. And even your husband doesn't know the number, so that's pretty useless. You don't look at websites much apart from a little bit of research. You don't watch television. I don't, this is going to sound like I'm treating you like a museum piece.
I am a museum piece. Please, bring it.
You're a bit of a, we're going to, you know, try and get Anne Patchett and give her to future generations when our minds are completely fried by...
Stuff her. Put her in the Natural History Museum, yes.
What's your day like? I mean, and you, obviously, your husband has a smartphone, so you know what his day is like. How does your day compare to other people who, all of us, who have these and look at websites? And I mean, what's it like living in your world? How do you get, you know, how do you go traveling? How do you...
I feel sometimes like I am the survivor of the zombie apocalypse, especially when I'm in New York and I'm walking down the street and every single person is doing this. When I look around in other cars and everyone is looking at their phone while they're driving their car, it's terrifying. But I really sound so stupid. Now, when do you look at trees? When do you notice the natural world? When do you think, I want to do my best to protect the natural world because I am a part of it? I am a part of the planet. I am a part of my community. No, you're not. You're just walking around looking at the palm of your hand. So in that sense, I think my day is really quite different. I mean, yeah, I just spend my whole life making things harder for myself. But I also write novels, and I am very interested in protecting my brain and not just constantly being interrupted. I've never texted. That seems like a really bad idea, texting. Just, I don't want people to be able to get me all the time. Okay, here's a story. It all goes back to my stepfather, my mother's second husband, who was the person that I grew up with, who I really loved, but was a very, very weird guy. And he was a doctor, and he gave my mother a pager, the first pager ever, so that when she was out, and this was the 70s, he would beep her and she would have to find a gas station with a payphone and call him because he wanted to know where she was. Okay, so that's one early childhood trauma that made me think I don't want a cell phone. 2, we all had guns. So my stepfather would say, if you're driving, you have to have a gun in the car because you won't be safe. And so when I was in high school, I always had a gun in the car. Back when it was illegal to have a gun in the car. 16, Catholic schoolgirl uniform and a gun in the glove compartment. And then people will say to me now, it's not safe for you to drive without a phone. It's not safe for you to be a woman out in the world without a phone. And my voice thinks, or a gun. I mean, either way, I have no interest in owning a gun. I would never own a gun. But if the chips were down and I had a choice between a phone and a gun, right? That's the world I came from. So I don't want people to be able to find me. I don't want to shoot anyone. No phones, no guns.
Do we all seem like kind of addicts to you?
Yeah, actually, yes. And the fact that it's not discussed as an addiction is bizarre. So nobody wants to get rid of the thing that they love. Nobody, if somebody has a profound engagement with books, they have no interest in banning books, right? So if you love the internet and you love your phone, you're not going to say, these things really aren't good for kids. This is really addictive. This is a bad idea. Because then it's going to come back on you.
Bring it back to your novels. Will there be a point at which you are writing novels, particularly if you write novels in the present, about characters who have a whole, today everybody has an online life, and your characters won't, because you don't know that life?
Oh, I write about all sorts of things I don't know. That's not limiting at all. Pretty much every single thing I write is about something I don't know. But phones really are the death of narrative plot, if you think about it, because your character can get in touch with anyone. They can get the answer to anything. And so what drives the narrative? And it is true that I'm always working to get rid of my characters' phones. I'm writing a novel right now in which the character is in this terrible storm and she gets sick and she doesn't charge her phone, and she's quite young. And so she's in New York and all of these things keep happening to her, but she doesn't have her phone because it's dead. So you have to do things like that.
So you're writing technology out of your fiction?
As best I can. But really, that's not just me. Most novelists will say it is very, very hard if the character can find anyone and connect with anyone to get the plot going. Do you remember dating? Do you remember dating before phones? And you know,
I've only ever dated without phones, I have to say, because I'm now so
old. Oh, that's
old
true.
that
Well,
I never had that.
I'm older than you are, miss. But you would make a date.
Yeah.
And then you would go to the restaurant. Maybe the person wouldn't be there, and then you would have to find a payphone, and then you would call them, but you'd get the answering machine, and then somebody would call, and you'd punch a series of numbers to check your answering machine. All of those things made life so much more interesting.
Do you feel some of the authors I have interviewed have felt a pressure to come up with books, with novels on a regular basis, particularly authors who work in the sort of thriller space, more popular fiction than literary fiction?
Right.
Do you feel under pressure to keep producing novels?
No.
On a schedule?
No, no. Again, who cares, really? Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird, everybody was just fine with just that one novel. You don't need more. I mean, people read them and I'm very grateful, but if I never wrote another book again, the world would keep going just fine. I do it because I love to do it. It's my privilege to do it, but I don't feel any pressure. I never sell a book until it's finished, and nobody reads it until it's finished, and it's finished when I call my editor and said, oh, I finished a book today, I'm going to send it to you.
Can you ever imagine not writing books?
Yes, sure. I would miss it, but I think about that a lot. When I'm complaining, when I'm saying, it's so hard, I'm so frustrated with myself. I worked 8 hours and I got 2 pages today. Could I just be a little more productive? And then I think, or I could stop. You're here because you want to be here. I've got plenty of money, I've got a bookstore, I've got a great life. I don't need to go on and do this forever. And that's a good reality check. I do it because I want to do it.
Anne, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was great.
One thing I can say which is true of this region is that it's become harder to be a journalist. It's really important to be on the ground. If that means you've got to go to hostile, remote places, then we have to do that.
That's the opium resin. There's a very pungent smell of it in the air right now.
The Delta wave of COVID devastated India, and I think it was the coverage that we did for the BBC at the time which brought international attention.
What's happening here could affect the world's ability to recover from the pandemic.
We've met with families who've had to do the unthinkable.
Another person came up and asked if we'd like to buy their child. The desperation is hard to put in words.
Many of the stories we've had to tell are distressing, they're difficult, but that's usually an indicator that they're really important stories to tell.
Thousands of people have come here to the centre of Seoul this evening. They have come to celebrate the newly elected president, Lee Jae-myung.
He's been firing rubber bullets at the direction of the crowd, and it shows you just how volatile the situation is.
We're seeing scenes of destruction like this one across Mandalay, and the reality on the ground is there just aren't enough pairs of hands.
Given the scale of the attacks we've seen over the past 48 hours, it doesn't feel like we're in ceasefire territory.
There when the story breaks, BBC News.
Live from London, this is BBC News. Aid distribution is ramping up in Gaza through Israeli and international airdrops as well as UN truck deliveries. International pressure has been mounting on Israel to allow aid in as the number of Gazans dying from malnutrition goes up.
I'm Regina Vaidyanathan at President Trump's golf resort here in Scotland. The President is due to meet the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, in the coming hour. They're hoping to thrash out an EU-US trade deal.
Firefighters in Turkey and Greece are using all available resources to battle a series of wildfires across the eastern Mediterranean. Hello, I'm Karen Giannoni. Jordan and the UAE have carried out airdrops into Gaza after Israel announced a series of new aid measures. Jordan is also sending in 60 trucks carrying essential food supplies. The country's state-run news agency is reporting Egypt's also delivering more aid by land. The developments come after the Israeli military announced a tactical pause in 3 parts of the territory to allow food and medicine to be distributed. Those areas are Al-Mawazi, Deir al-Balah and Gaza City. The IDF says the aid corridors are being set up to refute what it claims is the false claim of intentional starvation. Aid agencies have repeatedly warned that mass starvation is taking hold in Gaza. The Health Ministry says 6 more people have died from malnutrition, bringing the total to 133, including 87 children. There is also concern over the aid drops, which aid agencies warn are inefficient and dangerous. These images, verified by the BBC, show the parachute of an aid package failing to open over Gaza. Let's hear from someone on the ground there.
When aid is airdropped, it causes injuries and damage. They cause massacres on the street. We are coming here for death. All these people, the people who die every day. If 1, 2 or 10 boxes are dropped, all these people cannot take them. Only 1 or 2% of people get the aid.
Well, we're also hearing from medical officials in central Gaza that at least 17 Palestinians awaiting an aid convoy were killed by Israeli fire. At least 50 were injured. Let's speak to our correspondent Hugo Bashega, who's reporting from Jerusalem. Hugo, what is the latest on the amount of aid getting into Gaza?
Yeah, Karen, so we saw those images of crowds cheering when aid packages were dropped from the air by Jordanian and Emirati planes over Gaza City, which is another indication of the desperate situation there for Palestinians in Gaza. And there have also been some dramatic images in the north of the territory with crowds desperately trying to guarantee some bags of flour from trucks arriving in parts of northern Gaza. So it does seem that there has been some delivery of aid in parts of Gaza. But again, what aid agencies have been saying is that there needs to be the unrestricted entry and delivery of aid by land to alleviate the crisis there. And obviously, we've seen that today was the first day after those measures were announced yesterday by the Israeli military. These pauses in fighting in three areas of Gaza, densely populated areas of Gaza, to allow the delivery of aid, and also the creation of these humanitarian corridors for UN convoys to deliver food and medical supplies. Now, the World Food Programme says it has enough aid in or heading into Gaza to feed the entire population for 90 days. But again, what humanitarian organizations have been saying is that there needs to be, a huge increase in the number of aid being allowed into Gaza to alleviate the situation, which again, aid organizations have been saying that, there is the risk of mass starvation across the territory because of these restrictions that have been imposed by the Israeli authorities.
And how different are these so-called tactical pauses in fighting from the ceasefire that so many are urgently calling for and have been for months?
Yeah, and a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, a ceasefire and hostage release deal has been the main hope to try to increase the number of aid being provided to the population of Gaza. We saw that in the last few weeks there had been those talks, and these talks have been so far unsuccessful in trying to reach a deal. And we had some officials in the last few days talking about trying to come up with different plans to try to solve this, this situation there with these talks between Israel and Hamas deadlocked. So yesterday we had this announcement by the Israeli military that pauses in fighting would be introduced for 10 hours in three parts of Gaza to allow the delivery of aid. But this only came after international pressure, outrage over these reports of mass starvation in Gaza, of Palestinians starving to death, of dramatic images of emaciated children in Gaza, and a lot of international pressure, including from some of Israel's closest allies, who have been blaming, Israel's policies and the restrictions that the government has imposed on the entry and delivery of aid for this crisis there. So an announcement that came after a meeting by the political leadership after days of intense pressure on the Israeli authorities.
Hugo, thanks very much. Hugo Bashega in Jerusalem. Let's speak to Ghada Al-Haddad. She is the Media and Communications Officer for Oxfam, and she joins us from Gaza. Ghada Al-Haddad, thank you for talking to us. What is the latest you're seeing with aid getting into Gaza?
Thank you so much. We are seeing a drop in an ocean of aids getting into the Gaza Strip. As you know, we are in catastrophic and deadly conditions we have been living through since the beginning of the war, announcing a few trucks to get into the Gaza Strip is definitely insufficient. The Israeli war in Gaza has created massive needs in different aspects. In foods and water and medical supplies, in water infrastructure, in sanitation facilities and infrastructure. We've seen how Israel has used every weapon possible against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strips, whether starvation, whether cutting the communication and internet services, whether damaging and hitting the water and sanitation infrastructure, and this all has created a massive needs in different aspects of the Gaza Strip. So with this massive needs, we need a real humanitarian response, and this means that we need a permanent ceasefire. We need opening for all the borders to the Gaza Strip and having unfettered access to all items to the Gaza Strip, so that we can help the communities recover from all famine conditions that they lived through, from the diseases that were caused by the Israeli war in Gaza, from the huge damage to the different infrastructures and civilians' infrastructure in Gaza.
Ghada Al-Haddad, with the situation as it is, with the current state that there is no ceasefire, what do you think that you will be able to do with the amount that is able to get in with these slight easing of the restrictions?
It's going to be a trickle, like you give me something not to die, but with no ceasefire and with this trickle of aids, you mean, okay, we're going to keep you alive, but we're going to kill you with a different tool. We're going to hit you. So, that's why it's important to call for a ceasefire. You cannot give me little aid and at the same time the Israeli air strikes, the Israeli bombardment, the Israeli shells are still ongoing. People wanted to, get relieved from all of this, from the war that we are living through for over 20 months. And again, we don't need a few trucks. We need to open the borders that we have to allow all types of aid to get in to help the people recover, and this couldn't be with a trickle of aid that is like a drop in an ocean of need, but this is with a full ceasefire and with allowing all types of aid in unfettered and at a scale to get into the Gaza Strip.
One of the very serious problems that we've been hearing from everybody inside Gaza is the price of food and supplies at the market, totally out of the reach of most ordinary people. We have heard today that the price of flour has been falling because of the news of the aid trickling in, as you say. How much of a difference do you think that could make?
We've been living in a war, and therefore there was a war economy, and that's why most of the prices were super high. If you walk in the market in Gaza, you wouldn't find you wouldn't find anything in the market, all essential items, egg, milk, chicken, meat, all of this have disappeared from the market since Israel has imposed its siege since March the 2nd. Many food items also have been missing from Gaza supermarket shelves and from Gaza markets, because we know how Israel has blocked the market, and this led to the skyrocketing of prices, which were unaffordable to the people in the Gaza Strip, who lost their sources of income. We hope with this trickle of aids that the prices would go down, but again, we need all types of aids and commercial goods to get into the Gaza Strip, so that things and life would be affordable for the people here. Most of the people here have lost their sources of income, they have lost their jobs, they have lost their homes. They are really tired, and they are in dire conditions right now due to this war. So that's why, again and again, the call for a ceasefire should be top priority for everyone in the world. And again, the call for having unfettered and access for aids, all types of aids, should be also a top priority for everyone in the world, and to allow all the humanitarian agencies to work freely and safely. Also, this is another important thing that all Palestinians are calling for.
Ghada Al-Haddad, we must leave it there. Thank you very much. Joining us from Oxfam from Gaza.
Thank you.
Now, President Trump will be hoping to strike a trade deal with the EU when he meets the Commission President Ursula von der Leyen shortly. President Trump is continuing his visit to Scotland. He's been out on the golf course in Turnberry. He told reporters he believes there's a 50-50 chance of reaching a deal with the EU. Let's talk to Rajini Vaidyanathan, who is spending another day at Turnberry, has been by the golf course there. Rajini, what are we expecting?
Well, as you said, President Trump did manage to squeeze a round of golf in this morning at his resort that he's owned here since 2014. But now the golf's out of the way, it's down to some serious business. In the next hour or so, he's due to be welcoming, as you say, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, to try and thrash out an EU-US trade deal. Now, the clock is ticking, Karen, because August the 1st is the deadline that the US President set for countries to come to an agreement and strike a deal with America, or they would face higher tariffs, as was set out earlier in the year when President Trump announced those sweeping tariffs for countries. So at the moment, if a deal isn't struck, then the EU would face